Veritas Libertas News Network, where your mind will be blown or your money back. Joke's on you, it's all free, so sit back and enjoy the show. Welcome to the arena. Hello everybody, welcome to the arena. I'm going to keep this short today. Got a quick little video about COVID. I've done this about 1 billion times, and I just haven't really been happy with it. So anyway, this is going to be the quick version. It's going to have everything you need to know in it. It's going to be awesome. Anyway, you think you know about COVID? Chances are very high you don't. I'm going to come out and say this right now. The true actual number of COVID positive tests, medically, scientifically, is 0 worldwide. Not a single confirmed test can actually be presented. And I'm going to go over the reasons why. So let's start with the CDC. The CDC, straight up, this is for the RT-PCR test. The RT-PCR test is the gold standard, quote-unquote gold standard for testing and diagnostics for SARS-CoV-2, COVID-19. Let's see what the CDC has to say. They say not for diagnostic testing use. They also say only primers and probes labeled for EUA use and distributed by the IRR, the International Reagent Resource, may be used for diagnostic testing. They go on, they give you some primers and probe information. So keep that in mind for later. So anyway, let's go to the International Reagent Resource. Now, if you click on this link right here, it takes you to this website. Doesn't matter what you type in, the information. Oh, there's no SARS-CoV-2. Do COVID-19. We'll just go back and use 2019 nCoV. Oh, sorry, nothing there. Oh, sorry, nothing there. Let's see if, gosh, I don't know. SARS-CoV-2. We'll try that one. That one seems legit. Oh, sorry. The interesting thing is I've already been through the International Reagent Resource website hundreds of times. Now, what you do find, you find all these under the human coronavirus. These are the only reference to coronavirus in general. Now, this is strain OC43, 229E, NL63, OC43, 229E, and NL63. Now, all of these are for old coronaviruses, which is the common cold. If you actually look up strain, if you just type in strain OC43, strain 229E, NL63, you look those up on Google, they will give you the dates, and go to any NIH link for those strains, and they will give you the dates as to when they were from. I believe they're from like 2004, 2010, 2012, maybe 2016 at the latest. I don't remember exactly which ones. But anyway, you can look those up. They're all for old coronaviruses that have nothing to do with COVID-19. But right here, it says, only primers and probes labeled for EUA use and distributed by the IRR may be used. Well, the IRR doesn't have any. They never did. They never, ever had any. So what are you supposed to use? You're supposed to use these? These right here? Well, they're not for diagnostic testing use. And this goes on to talk about how it is against federal law to use this stuff because they are not approved for EUA. So what are you supposed to use? There isn't any. There's nothing. There's nothing you can use to test for COVID. It's not possible. So let's further that point. Let's look at what the FDA says. This is the actual EUA manual instructions for use for the RT-PCR test. Page 3, intended use. Paragraph 4, right here. Positive results are indicative of active infection with SARS-CoV-2, but do not rule out bacterial infection or co-infection with other viruses, which specifically means it cannot tell the difference between bacteria or a virus. So you can use this test. It shows that there is something there, but it has no clue what it is. Since it has no clue what it is, therefore this cannot be used to diagnose anything. Has no idea. It can't do it. Okay, so let's look at page 40 of the same manual. Performance characteristics. This is where it gets really good. Since no quantified virus isolates of the 2019 nCoV were available for CDC use at the time the test was developed and this study conducted, assays designed for detection of the 2019 nCoV RNA were tested with characterized stocks of in vitro transcribed full-length RNA, spiked of known titer, spiked into a diluent consisting of a suspension of human A549 cells and viral transport medium to mimic clinical specimen. To mimic. Since they didn't have the isolated virus, they had to make shit up so they could mimic something that was somewhere near COVID or what they thought was COVID. That's what the FDA is saying. FDA.gov, right here. Look, I'll even refresh the page. This isn't a joke. Page 40. Paragraph 2, they made it up. They made that up. Now, one could say, well, I guess, this, and like I said, this is actually from July of 2021. Effective July 21st, 2021. So it was a year and a half. This manual had been put out a year and a half after COVID was officially, what was it, December? It was December of 2019, actually, when COVID was officially diagnosed in the United States in Washington. I believe it was January. Early February is when the first RT-PCR tests were starting to be used. So, okay, no isolation. No, FDA is claiming that there was no isolates available. Well, let's check out China. According to the NIH, mind you, we'll refresh the page so you know I'm not joking. The NIH on February 23rd, 2020 was... Oh, no, I'm sorry. What was this I wanted to look at? January 7th of 2020, SARS-CoV-2 was isolated by China. January 10th of 2020, first genome sequence of SARS-CoV-2 was released. January 10th. When did the first RT-PCR test come out? This is from the FDA, right here. The very first EUA-approved RT-PCR test came out on April 1st, 2020. So you're telling me from January 10th, which was when China released the data, the genome sequence, which is what you make tests from, test kits, you would take that data and you would build a test around it. So from January 10th, which was when the world found out about it, I believe they posted it in nature.com, in that medical journal, I believe is where it states that they actually originally posted the genome sequence. So that was January 10th. And then April 1st, a full 2.5 months minimum later, the first test was approved. But they did not have... They didn't have any isolates available. Since no quantified virus isolates of the 2019 nCoV were available. So what did you make the test from? You didn't have any primers or probes. You don't have any primers or probes currently. You never had the virus to actually build this from. So what did you actually use? They just made it up. They straight up made it up. And this is as of July 2021. They still maintain, this is the FDA, they still maintain that they made it up to mimic clinical specimen. They just made the shit up. They told you that. And you still think that COVID is a diagnosable disease. They don't even know what it is. They have no clue. Either they do know what it is, and they don't want you to know, so they're not going to publish any of the data around it, or they have no clue what it is, and they've just made the shit up this whole time. Either way, that's not good for you and I. All of these lockdowns, all of these businesses that have lost their business, their entire life savings, their entire livelihoods have gone into businesses. People have committed suicide over this stuff. We've lost hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people to these situations and self-inflicted harm, all over something that they can't even prove exists. And that's not even talking about the court cases, the supposed rumored court cases where FOIA documents were supposedly brought forth saying that it was admitted that the virus was never isolated. Even discounting all of that stuff, CDC and the FDA maintain that you can't test for it because we don't have anything to test for as far as information goes for the primers and probes. Then the FDA says, yeah, we actually didn't have any isolates, even though they existed, according to China and Nature.com. So that means either China lied about the isolates and those weren't real, or they were real and nobody actually built the test for it, because the EUA specifically means emergency use authorization, which means this test is not used for anything legitimate in the world ever, because it's not capable of diagnosing it. So the only way they could use it is in an emergency. This test has been out since the 80s. Kary Mullis used this test to look at what was present in HIV patients. It's been around for 30 plus years, and it still is not used for diagnostics. Even Kary Mullis himself admits this is not a diagnostic test. It cannot diagnose anything. There are a bunch of interviews with him on YouTube. Go look him up. Kary Mullis, Karymullis. There's a bunch of them. He says many, many times, this cannot diagnose anything. And the best ones are the ones where he talks about Fauci and what a fraud he is. And this was back, like, I think the interviews were like in the 90s. It does not change the fact that none of this stuff this is a true scamdemic. All of it is. This is all garbage. April 1st was when the first RT-PCR test EUA was released. April 1st. So from January 10th to April 1st, nobody, not a single person, was able to use isolated COVID-19 genome sequences to build a proper test. Not a single person on the planet was able to do that. Interestingly enough, April 1st was the first time that they released the EUA or approved an EUA for this. April Fool's Day. That's kind of neat, huh? So anyway, then they went on to say, as of January 1st, 2022, the RT-PCR test will not be allowed to be used anymore. Or I shouldn't say not to be allowed. They're urging you to not use the RT-PCR test. Well, let me tell you, it's April of 2022. They're still using the RT-PCR test. And there are still people who claim that this is the quote-unquote gold standard. And I'm not talking just regular Joe Schmoes like me. I'm talking about actual lab techs who are like, oh, yeah, this is the gold standard. Really? Because the CDC and the FDA and the IRR, the International Reagent Registry, and the NIH all say that, it's the FDA, not the NIH. They all state that this is not the gold standard because it's not possible. You want to know why they're urging you to stop with the RT-PCR test? CDC encourages laboratories to consider adoption of a multiplex method that can facilitate detection and differentiation of SARS-CoV-2 and influenza viruses. So the test wasn't able to determine the difference, just like the FDA paperwork, the EUA paperwork said. It can't tell the difference between bacteria and other viruses. So we should really stop using this and use a different test that can tell the difference, thus proving the RT-PCR test was never capable of determining or diagnosing COVID. And this is straight from the authorities' mouth, right here. All of it is directly from the CDC, FDA, IRR, and the NIH. The authorities on this information have told you the truth, but you still believe, most people still believe that COVID is still diagnosable through the RT-PCR test. That's why I say the true number of actual positive cases is 0 worldwide. I'm not saying that COVID doesn't exist, but it doesn't change the fact that there is not an actual method to test for COVID, so therefore you can never have a scientifically proven positive test that is legitimate. It's not possible. So therefore, all of the positives that are out there now have to be all thrown away. Every single one of them. If the RT-PCR test was used to diagnose it, garbage. Thrown away. 0. That's not my opinion. That is actual fact right here. Like I said, given to you directly from the authorities, right from the sources. It's that simple. It's not hard. You were scammed. That's all there is to it. You were scammed. You know what you had? If you got tested positive for COVID, you either didn't have anything at all, maybe a cold, or you had pneumonia. Which, by the way, every single early paper that when they talked about COVID, University of Minnesota was one. I don't remember the other ones now. They all talked about how even the NIH talks about how it is a pneumonia. COVID was pneumonia. But hey, the science changed. No, it did not. Science has not changed as far as viruses are concerned. You got duped. That's all there is to it. Anyway, that's the truth. In under 15 minutes, enjoy.